Sean? Yes? No? Oh, now we're live.
Ready? Welcome
Man,
to
that thing
Business
was like,
Technicalities.
welcome again, because I thought it said live. You're right. It jumped back a second on me. I had a glitch.
I was watching. I was waiting. I was like, I mean, it didn't matter either way. But,
Well,
like what Tom was saying, welcome to Business Technicalities. My name is Sean Lardo. I'm here with my friend Tom Lawrence. How are you today, Tom?
more enthusiastic than you.
Oh, man. It's flight to Denver, man. Being up all night. Yeah, it's going.
Yeah, even though it's technically earlier, you've been up longer because you're time
Yes.
zones.
Yes. And then I have a whole night ahead of me, too. I'm over here for IT Nation Evolve. And tonight we meet up with all the guys and girls from that are the peer groups, and we're going to a dinner, actually with last year's PitchIT winner, Gene Rich from Traceless. So
Awesome.
I'll be seeing him shortly. But yeah, this is so. I mean, I don't plan on making this a late night because it was already a long day.
Yeah, very cool. So this is going to be about PitchIT. We're going to be talking about security. Now, PitchIT, if you haven't seen the other videos, hey, go check them out. There's plenty of them. Now, the PitchIT system is, we got 18, and we can't say 18 enter, one believe, although Sean has been treating it like Thunderdome.
It is not. I'm told I can't call Thunderdome because it's not accurate.
Yeah,
but I just love that. Who doesn't like Mad Max Thunderdome, man?
Yeah. Well, it's the Shark Tank style competition that has been put on by ConnectWise. Now, the good news is all of these vendors didn't just show up and aren't going to show up at IT Nation and they're going to pick a winner. It's more organized than that. It's not.
Yes,
that's how Sean would do it, but this is actually Sean just put them in Thunderdome, give them some, battle gear, and
dude, that'd be, amazing. That would be great. Like, actually, like Thunderdome or like, because there's 18 of them, more like a medieval field, and they all get shields and swords and mace, whatever they want. I don't care.
You go ahead and float that idea with management. We'll see how it goes. But what they actually do is put them through an entire training course to take all 18 of these vendors. They go through, they're going to show them a lot about how their product fits to market, to help them tune their business model, help them align it, product market fit, as we like to say, to make sure it aligns with the vendor's needs, how to enhance things, and give them a lot of resources. So no matter what, even if they're not the winners of the grand prize, the one company that wins that grand prize, they still come out more well-rounded than they came in and understanding the market. And, we like to give them a little exposure as they go through that, because there's a lot of sacrifice. They have to put a lot of time in. And I remember, some of the first vendors are like, this is a lot of time. Yeah, there's a lot of modules that they have to go through for all this learning. But overall, these guys are down towards the end of it here, where they're getting, I don't know how many more modules are left, but every vendor we've talked to this later part has talked about the value they've gotten from these modules. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, we've had a very good show. We've had a good group of vendors.
Yeah,
they're very active participants. And let's just add to that. Not only did they go through a weekly workshop with industry leaders, but they also are doing webinars. They do one with me and Adam Bolensky on one side, and they're doing it with you and I here on this side. So literally, they're on with me 3 times a week. I don't know if they want that, but they are 3 times a week. And we have a few weeks left of the total. So the workshops will be ending after this week or next week, I believe. And then we're about to make an announcement for what the preliminaries will be, because we're going to go down to the 18 teams. We're all going to compete at the end of this month, and we're going to select, and thank God I don't judge. There will be 3 teams that are picked after that, which will be announced around in the second week of September sometime. And those 3 teams will be assigned head coaches, where the last 3-year winners, and they will compete at IT Nation Connect Live in November for the grand prize of $70,000. Second place $30,000, and third place, well, no monetary gain, but they do get space at the conference, and as you said, they get this whole experience. So that's that in a nutshell.
Awesome. All right, let's get to our guests. Enough, Sean.
Cool. Yes. So first we'll bring up Key Tran, not to be confused with Kai, but Key.
Yes.
What's up, dude? What up, guys? How's it going?
And he's with Vona High Security. I think I can say that's how it said, right?
Yeah, Vona High Security.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And can we really
pull from fire?
Pull from fire?
Yeah, it's yep.
Dude, can we also acknowledge the fact that Key Tran has like a great radio voice almost too?
Really?
Yeah.
I've been perfecting it for 34 years. Thank you.
You're on. Well, you're doing well, man. Like honestly, it sounds really good. Like, maybe you should be doing like radio.
I might try that next. Vanahai
Okay.
Radio. That's gonna be our next product line. Yeah.
Vanahai podcast.
There we go. Let's do it.
You start to align yourself with people like Tom that does all these hacker things.
Yep.
And
podcasts and everything else. It's fun.
You can host. You got the voice.
Let's do it.
I think his voice is better than yours and mine, Tom.
Oh, I was not blessed with a good voice. That's why I have to be smart. If I had a good voice, I could just say things and people, I just want to hear it.
Wow, you must be starving over there then. Anyway, so tell us briefly, Keytran, what's the company do again?
Yeah, Vanahai Security. We have a automated pen testing platform that we've built, almost specifically for MSPs. Yeah.
Awesome. And what's your position? What's your role with the company?
I am the chief product officer here. So, my background, I come from federal government to huge enterprises, to huge managed services providers, to small MSPs. So I've seen it all. And the whole idea of me being here with Vanahai is to really bring it to market, make sure it fits, and make sure that we're delivering, the best platform we can. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. We're going to bring up my man, Cam. Not in a hotel room, but in his actual apartment that's like really pimped out like IKEA. What's up, Cam? How are you? From Alert Ops, by the way, everybody, because Tom's going to do that next. How you doing, dude?
Good, Sean, Tom, really great to be here. Thank you guys for having me on.
Absolutely. So tell us about Alert Ops.
Yeah, so among other tools in the ecosystem, right, we fit into the IT ops ecosystem with respect to alert management and incident response orchestration, right? So we got a bunch of monitoring tools, monitoring everything from security, database, application, whatever it is. Now, what do we do next? Who do we alert? How do we do it? So our tool really provides a bit of a framework for standardizing operating procedures, as well as structuring and automating escalation, on-call scheduling, and downstream incident response workflows.
If there's something MSPs need, it's proper orchestration and organization. We were just in Chicago, and the number of MSPs on, incident response plan comes up. Everyone's like, no, ours is fine. They're not. That was a big discussion topic. It always is. It's not easy. And as my favorite Mike Tyson InfoSec quote, everyone has a plan to get hit in the face.
Fact. That is a fact. And I don't understand it though. Why is it such a struggle for them to get this together? First off, and I'll put it in perspective before I even go further with that and look for the answer. They have no problem talking about the escalation of tickets internally and arguing with their staff and making sure they're perfectionists to a degree, right? So what's the problem with this? What's the difference?
I mean, I personally, at least from my experience, I think that it's a combination of a couple of different things. One is the framework, right? Whether it's NIST or it's ITIL or whatever the framework is, we're consistently introduced with a series of best practices that by the time you blink, there is another set of best practices around. So being able to keep up with those, I think, is definitely pretty key there.
Well, personally, I think, especially in the MSP space, it's usually a lot of people that love tech stuff. And then now you're saying, hey, how about some documentation? We're out. No, thank you.
Yeah, we love tech, but documenting what we do is it is a differentiator. I had some brilliant techs, but they don't succeed as well as the ones that take the time to document. And I'm like, cool that you can do cool things, but if you can't document that you did them, you can't teach other people to do them. You'll limit the scope of your effectiveness quite a bit. And especially when you talk about, because when we had to talk with the compliance people, bureaucracy is always not the skill of the technician. So dealing with compliance can be some of the same issues. Like, can I just fix the computer? Well, it's part of your job. You have to make sure it's compliant, that some boxes were checked off and things like that too. It's interesting because we're seeing vendors in this space on both sides, because these are the next level as our industry matures. We need some automation around some of the alerting, automation around some of the compliance. That's some of these next level stuff. That's where I see like us growing as an industry.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and what it's important to have this, I saw somebody, I came back from IT Nation Secure, and I forget who said it, but they were comparing the fact that now that we're transforming over to all cloud mostly for a good part of everything, how important automation has become now, because there's so many moving parts. And now you have the ability to actually create automation around it too. you're not pigeonholed into it and not being able to. So it will be so important to have that along with, and let's go back to the documentation thing. I've been in sales and marketing and branding my whole life, right? Not my whole life, but a good part of it. I'm only 21 years old. So in my young career, I've done this a bit. And one thing that I know that we always need is to feel confident in our processes and staff, and documentation is a big part of that, especially if you're talking to tech people and they say, hey, where's the documentation? If I can't provide that, I lose the deal. I lose credibility. I lose the lead. Take your pick, whatever it is all gone. And they tell other people too. So it's stupid not to have all this. And nobody's scalable. So I think it's important. But I'm going to shut up now and let the experts talk about it.
No, I agree 100%. I think to what you guys both just said, right? Automation is where it needs to go, because coming from the MSP space, it is insane. There's so many tools out there. There's a bazillion different solutions. You're trying to juggle between training, working the job. How do I go about this? It's not scalable. It has to be automated. Most of your solutions. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and how much time? So, and you guys are pretty interesting in that when I sat down with Alton and talked to him about it, pen testing is such an important thing, and we can talk about the pricing in a minute, which is absurd. I don't know how you guys are so low, but we were talking about the effectiveness and the time saved. It's estimated that no matter what job you have, 50 to 60% of your workload, maybe between 40 and 60% of your workload is on admin tasks, not even doing your real job.
Yep.
So when you look at this, how much does that save for you?
How much does that save for us?
Yeah, like with your product, how much time does it save for the average MSP?
Oh, tons. Well, because the beauty of our solution is, whenever we built this, right, our goal was it has to be easy. It has to be automated, and it has to be easy. And the real takeaway is you can have the coolest tech in the world, all right? The business owners do not care, because they just want to know, for an MSP perspective, their clients, like, how are you protecting me? Because ultimately, really what MSPs are selling to a business owner is business operation uptime. Don't make me lose money because my technology went down.
Yep.
So what we've done is we've built a solution that makes it super easy. You don't need a penetration tester on your team to use it. And it's fully automated. And you get a deliverable that's client ready. You can just show it to your clients, right? And you don't have to reformat it, and it's just ready to go. So yeah, tons of time saved, both from a technical perspective and from the admin side.
I'll go on a limb and say, like, both of you know who HD Moore is and things like that. And it reminds me of kind of the arc we had in history when HD Moore has Metasploit, releases it to the public and things like that. So many people, like, they didn't understand what he's trying to do is make this a more scalable thing. It's like these increments we need, because this is a complex thing to do, to have the knowledge. And some people think it's taken away, but I want this expertise. I'm like, yeah, cool. There's not enough of you. There'll never be enough pen testers to actually roll it out to all the MSPs. It's just not, I listened to one of the podcasts, and I thought it was funny because the number they throw out there is laughable. They said they think they're 500,000 people short to get effective IT security rolled out, they're across the industry. Right. But because it was an enterprise tech podcast, I'm just listening to it, I'm like, if you don't do automation, you probably need 500,000 people to go out and do this.
Seriously.
You're not going to find them, though. This is not a reasonable, achievable goal. These are the tools we need to start building it. Like, I think about that. Like, has Metasploit made certain things easier? But that is each level we need to get to, because no one really seen the real value of, oh, this will allow us to focus on other tasks. We can keep just adding it to the Metasploit framework to hurry up and build these payloads, because I want to understand and test and poke at these things as a red teamer, or just get these evaluations to see if shell actually works on there. That's building that level of automation is really cool. That's the only way the MSPs are going to get to it, because you go down to the smaller MSP market, there's so many things you have to do as an MSP, and I would say, you guys probably have a better insight into this than me, but when I go to these events, I don't feel a lot of the MSPs got their thumb on cybersecurity very well. Like, it's just not their background. It wasn't their Windows admins. They're not hackers. The number of people that show up at like some of the big ConnectWise events, and you'll find at DEF CON, that Venn diagram doesn't have a ton of crossover in it.
I believe it. Yeah.
So, but let's dig into that too. And, since you both reside in security, but also automating certain aspects and making things easier, and Cam, we were talking about it when you brought up earlier, as far as what you guys do, we were talking about the fact that the the instant response piece is always lacking because they, whatever reason, I'm going to base off of because they're always chasing their own tail. They don't have the ability to create processes. And this ties into what Tom said about people don't know what to say when they're there as far as cybersecurity is concerned because it's newer to them. How are you ever going to learn it? How are you ever going to get involved in it whenever you're busy doing all the mundane tasks as a business owner?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one thing that I encounter very frequently is a text document. Someone has written down a series of steps that should be followed by an organization as a whole, and it is on Notepad or it's on OneNote and it resides there. Maybe it's in a knowledge base like Confluence. More times than not, it's not. So I think that one of the biggest pieces on top of the actual value of automating the process is providing a platform where you can write stuff down, right? You write something down and that thing gets done by an automated system. So even in the process of testing an alert management tool or an incident response tool, that it forces you to put yourself in the framework of, okay, what is this process actually supposed to look like, rather than how do I write down the steps so that the next person can vaguely follow the standard operating procedure, right? So actually being able to put pen to paper and get some of those items documented, I think is pretty crucial.
I think that's important, having somewhere to put it, because that discussion will come up. Where do we put this? We're starting to create some documentation. Client documentation is easy. It goes to the client file. It goes into whatever you're using to manage all your client documents. But your own documentation, especially like you said, throw it in Confluence. But what if part of what got hit? Because, it's not like Confluence doesn't have, I don't know, a new vulnerability a week. And that's there's a much greater than zero chance that Confluence is how they get into your network. So having an understanding of where those alerts are, and, I looked a little bit at how AlertOps is handling that, like you guys are doing it through automation, through, the intelligence of linking in there. And I think that's kind of a cool way to do it. So there's a serious incident and it starts bringing up, I assume you tie the document. I didn't use your product, but just kind of looking through the workflow, you're going to tie the document to the alert. Like, this happened. Let me put this in your face right now, essentially what I assume it's doing, to say, this is what you need to start doing and alerting the right people. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that in that same vein too, right, it's kind of helpful to have a place where you can look at related incidents. So not necessarily the exact same thing, but if you have something arise that hasn't in the past that might follow an operating procedure or a postmortem that was previously constructed, being able to reference similar incidents to we even create a new operating model or procedure there.
Yeah, pulling that correlation data in one place. So this is, we had an alert this morning. I knew it was something we'd seen before and not a big deal. It was mitigated right away, but there's still a little bit of postmortem needs to be done, confirm how it got there, things like that. But being able to just pop that up and say, here's what happened, here's what was mitigated, but there's still a little bit of follow-up work. We got to figure out why they clicked on that. Grade was blocked, no real fires to put out, but still some debrief on there. And we hired a new person today too that also is like, so where's all this documentation for stuff? And I'll admit, I'll be straight up honest, it's not wonderful, it's not perfect. Everyone knows it that works here, but when the new guy starts, there's some scalability problems that I'll be very forthcoming with, that we're an MSP with only 9 people now, so there's learning that's got to be done.
Wait, is that your reasoning? Is it the university of 9 people? Is that your reasoning?
No, it's just me being honest.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not like you had a lame excuse, kind of like 9 people. I'm having a challenge here. So, I mean, I don't know. So, yeah. Well, here, Tim just said. Here you go.
Yeah, root cause analysis.
Yep. So, with that said, now, since Tom, you're lacking. So, what's the best course of action for Tom to get documentation in order and be more effective and scalable? I'm not asking you anymore, Tom. I'm talking to the experts on the other side. So what do you think?
Yeah, automation for sure. Matter of fact, it'd be kind of a fun experiment. We run pen tests on your network, and then Cam's AlertOps can build out your IR plan.
Yeah.
This is actually fun, because if you use the pen test, see what it triggers.
Exactly.
You'll figure out when it doesn't trigger something. Well, we got to go back over to the AlertOps and build the documentation for it. So the two products together actually could help someone just build their internal documentation. You keep firing off pen tests, we keep firing off alerts.
Yeah, pretty much.
All the alerts. You team up, and then this is how you build someone.
Okay, to be clear, you guys are competing. I want to remind you of this. So not to say,
well, they're competing, but there's still some collaboration here that can occur. So
there's a lot.
Products don't compete. They may be competing for the prize at PitchIT, but there's some,
right.
We could use both of these products.
No, that's actually spot on. It actually kind of, I feel like each week we've done this, Tom, we've pinned them up pretty well where it's been collaborative products that are complementary to each other, which is important. And actually, so we were just at ChannelCon last week, Tom and I, right? We were at CompTIA at ChannelCon. How many times are you there around these things and you realize how many people, these MSPs walk around aimlessly and buying random shit that doesn't match? Okay, like, so I mean, come on, I've watched it. I know people that are like, actually, I talked to the COO from MSP, a relatively sizable MSP, and she said, this moron went to IT Nation Connect and bought 5 different products. We can only use one of them.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, and he's standing there and goes, yes, I did. That's all he said. no real rhyme or reason. So how do you even tell the story then? Like, so I walk up to your booth cam and I say, what do you guys do? You give me your spiel, right? But we obviously know it doesn't end there. Then it has a key tran involved. It also has, so what else are you complimentary to? What else do you tell me to do?
Yeah, 100%. I think that really from our perspective, the way that we envision that is, okay, let's get the 80% out of the way first, right? Which is talking over the cloud, mostly just webhooks using REST. So at that point, we've kind of built an open framework. If you can send a webhook, you can talk to Alert Ops. If you have an API, we can talk to you. So from that standpoint, we're trying to keep it as open as possible just for that exact scenario that you're mentioning, right? We don't know how a lot of these tools have the ability to communicate. If they're integrated with us, then 100% we are fairly well versed with the technology. But as a standard, we generally rely on just REST as a framework. And then beyond that, it is up to the client or the integrating source what the actual payload is going to be. But I do think that that's a good question, because where does the synergy lie, or what level of baseline synergy do we need to actually determine if this thing works for us?
Tim Golden loves saying this. 2022 is all about the API. So as we integrate everything.
He never repeats himself ever.
No. He's right. And I'm happy to see this, and we've discussed it with several of the vendors that we've had on PitchIT. They're always thinking about the different API integrations they can do so they can make things, call out to not just ConnectWise, but other services, because we have to get more and more integrations with these. And there's even some companies that are just almost producing the middleware to build some of this as well. Steve Satchers, I think, is really great. Tim says 2024 is all about the API as well. Yes, we know, Tim. It's going to be for a while. And eventually, from a security standpoint, I think we're going to hear from Vonahai about testing APIs a lot more. That's where I see some of the big risks coming in. What are some of the big holes that you are helping to cover with Vonahai when it comes to the security portion to help prevent them from getting alerts and incidents?
Yeah. So our platform actually focuses more on the network layer. We do like some API web app pen testing as but that's more like a traditional engagement. And that's because it's complex. Like what you just said, those are complex. It's just so dynamic and variable that it's a little bit harder to kind of automate that. But we focus on the network layer because for the most part, everything's got an IP, it's got a port, and it's communicating over a network. And it's shockingly easy how people can get in now, and then how they can move around and start grabbing data.
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing it automatically, so there's that.
It's wild because it's a chore to keeping everything up to date. I see tons of companies. I do a lot of consulting work. That's most of my job is not MSP. The bigger part of the work we do is consulting, and we unflatten networks. Sometimes I'm shocked at the scale and scope. They're like, we just made these bigger networks bigger and bigger on the scope. I'm like, yeah, they should have been segmented into pieces because we can get to everything. And we're seeing everything from iDRAC and HP ILO and printers all on the same subnet. And I'm like, no. I mean, famously, that's how NASA got compromised. Was it, I don't know number of years ago, and we discovered through the different report that NASA had a giant flat network where they just got everything and got an IP address and everything was accessible. You're like, no.
Oh, I believe it. We've actually seen quite a bit of it's surprising to me whenever I see these, but they pop up every now and then on some of these assessments. They'll be like /16s for like a small business. I'm like, why do you have a /16?
Nobody should. Yeah, we had a very large company that they were a lab engineering with all kinds of really regarded secrets on there, and that's what they had done. They increased it till it kept getting bigger, and that's what they eventually got to a /16 before they reached out for help.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, yeah, this should not all be on the same network, especially because each division was so separated. But what are some of the things that you see the most of with One Highway? You're seeing a lot of just out-of-date firmware, a lot of IoT devices on the same network. What are some of the giant red flags you see most common?
Yeah, no, this is great. IPv6.
They forgot about that.
And DNS. Honestly, there are two easy ways that I think pen testers typically gain access. Actually, threat actors in general, by basically spoofing DNS, using IPv6 as part of it. And that's because IPv6, up to this point, a lot of people don't really pay attention to it, right? They're just like, this is out there. I'm still using IPv4. Don't really care about it. And then it becomes a pretty easy attack surface.
Yeah, I think people forget that they have all that exposed when they put IPv6 on there. It's like, cool, I have all these extra addresses. We purposely, unless there is a use case for it, we lock it down and turn it off because I don't want to deal with, because there, I mean, lesser, but it's principal least privilege. Is there something else in that stack that someone may exploit? I don't know. I don't want to worry about it. Do you need it? Cool. No. All right, we'll move on. We'll just leave it IPv4, and I'll deal with the hate in the comments, as I always say when I do videos on that topic. Tom, why don't you do an IPv6 video? I'm like, do you have a specific use case that just makes you happy?
No.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the other thing too is we've seen quite a bit, and this one's kind of like more of like a basic thing, but it happens, right? And but reusing passwords, like it's wild because once we are able to crack a password hash, we're going to try to see how many accounts we can use with that password, and sometimes it's shocking.
Yeah, that's definitely a real challenge.
Are we talking about passwords? I'm sorry. I'm the king of.
You were using passwords?
Oh my lord!
What coming for you, man?
Not anymore. Before I realized the vastness of my stupidity, MFA passwords. I was your number one guy. You guys loved me. Like, you hated my guts. So yeah, no, I totally get it. I was like one of my good friends since I got into this space was my IT guy at one point. He was like, you just make my life miserable on a regular basis. And I'm like, what do you mean? 'Cause I was the guy that clicked every link. I was the guy, but no, everything's been fixed. I've matured. I've evolved. I got it together. I don't know, Cam, what do you think? I think I got it together. So.
Oh, I believe it.
See, thank you, Cam, for the support. Cam said I believe it. That's all I need. I'm done at her.
Yeah. I think, Sean seems like he understands password management. He's heard it from enough of us. He hangs out with enough techie people. We beat him up over it.
Oh my lord, yes. I got beat up over and oh, you have no idea, but it's so fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun when you do nothing wrong like you are. You know what? It's fun. It's not fun anymore. I'm done now. I got beat up enough. But yeah, I do know a little bit about it. But so in the grand scheme of all of this, right? Security being like the hot topic, because even like at CompT, it was a big conversation, was this whole cyber piece and securities. With that though, where do you guys see this going? What's the next step? Because we started with a bunch of big companies that did a bunch of stuff. And then over the years, you saw a bunch of little companies come up, right? And you even saw ConnectWise acquire Perch a couple years back, So it's inevitable this is going to keep evolving. So where does it evolve to next?
Autonomy, I think, because that's the tricky part, right? I think for us right now, we're bringing a service to the SMB space that didn't really exist before. I think we're actually might be one, if not the only, in our space to offer that. And so, and I think it's becoming more important because SMBs are getting attacked. Before, I think maybe like, oh, they're just going to focus on the big players, right? The big fish. The reactors only care about the big fish. That's not true.
No.
Small companies house all kinds of data now. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What do you think, Cam?
No, yeah, I 100% agree. And I think he kind of just around Vonahai, right? The accessibility aspect of it. I think accessibility and automation is really where it's headed, right? These SMBs and mom and pop shops may not have either the overhead or the skill set to go through and facilitate a lot of these security operations that are necessary. And similarly, it needs to be intuitive enough that someone non-technical can do it, right? So if Vonahai doesn't require a security expert to go through and conduct pen testing, I think that's awesome, right? And I really think that accessibility and how intuitive and self-serving these platforms are gonna like pave the path.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's the only way we can really scale it. So it's not that it doesn't. I would actually word a little bit different. At Vonahai, I don't think it doesn't require one. It just makes the better use of the few that we have. So, it's a way to automate and scale them. But I have a specific question about this because this is a fuzzy problem I see when it comes to pen testing. So are you guys, how far deep down are you pen testing? I know the obvious ones like, hey, look, this firmware's out of date. I can match with this firmware, these versions of these CVEs for this version or lower of firmware. Those ones are pretty easy to match. But does it go a little further and poke a little bit at, something run Apache to see if it has other things enabled? What's the extent that it goes to?
Yeah, no, great question. So it goes far enough to gain sensitive data, but we don't want to cause business disruptions, right? Because it is ultimately an ethical hack. But we are making lateral movement, and we're going to attempt to try and get domain admin privileges. But part of that too, it's built really well, right? Because it's not just, hey, let me just blow a whole bunch of tools at this environment and just see what happens. It's actually doing a lot of information gathering to figure out what is the most appropriate attack path. So, for example, if we're going to do a password spray and, basically a brute force attack on a whole bunch of AD accounts we found, we don't know the password policy. So we're not going to do it, 10 times and lock everyone out. And then now everyone's pissed off. So we do it once, actually. And if we can't get a good pass on that, then we launched basically, if we can find the AD password policy, then we'll go back and maybe try a couple more times, depending on what that threshold looks like. But yeah, that's about pretty much how far it will go.
Okay.
And then, of course, along the way, we're going to take screenshots of stuff we find.
Yeah, and that's because I think there's probably a lot of discoveries where people didn't know they had something open.
Exactly.
And that's just a general, when I seen companies just doing some of this public scanning. We actually did a talk at CompTIA, me, Jason Slagle, and Matt Lee. We put a talk together called How I Would Hack You. And it was really basic, but a lot of people were like, that's a lot. We're just like showing them how they can use DNS Dumpster to see all the public of facing side of it. I'm like, yeah, it's that simple. And some of the people were like, I need to go make a few changes. I'm like, yeah, because this is like, you can point all these tools at yourself. As I kind of joked at the talk, I said, you can embarrass yourself in the privacy of your own browser. I said, drop your own domain in here, do a quick port scan. Here's a list of sites you can check to see what's open. And just from the external recon perspective and get an idea on there. And then, of course, it's worse because once someone gets even the slightest foothold, if they leverage something to bring it internal, if you have that flat network and you're like, yeah, it's behind the firewall. So yeah, I'm 4 versions behind and et cetera, being able to know that on an automated basis for yourself and of course for your clients, I think is going to be critical how you really look at that to make sure you have a good solid asset inventory, a good discovery of what wasn't managed from your MSP. We do a lot of co-managed work, so we have this weird split where we know what we're managing, but we scan their whole network and we let them know what's not our problem, but could be a problem. And so we try to raise a lot of awareness because sometimes we find things they didn't like. That old server's still on. I'm like, I don't know why. I just know that we found it on this subnet. And they're like, I thought that was disconnected over in Chicago. Turns out it wasn't. No one's on it that we're aware of, but they could be. I guess a lot of that discovery is what Vonahai is probably really useful for, is getting that overall picture.
Yep, you nailed it. Because I think that's a huge takeaway, right? And we've had that challenge, I think, in our the way we present this and message this, but because there's a lot of comparison with the vulnerability scanner, right?
And a
the
little
big,
bit more extensive than that.
Yeah, exactly. Because a vuln scan is great for telling you the things that are known, right? Like I know these are the vulnerabilities, but the pen test reveals things that you don't know. And in MSP space, you're dealing with a ton of clients, right? It's not feasible to know every single one like the back of your hand. We all strive for that, but it's just not feasible because there's just too much stuff, and people are adding stuff to the network all the time. And so that's where Von High comes in, right? Because the pen test, man, it's a black box test, first of all. So it knows nothing about the environment. So it's going to scan and discover and try to get as far as it can.
And I think you nailed something right there, especially for people in my position who co-manage. We're dealing with internal IT teams, add stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Yes, that is something that is a thing. And if you don't build in automation to do this as a ritual, as it's going to run constantly, we even have one of our co-managed deals where they actually bring in an outside company and they don't tell us when they're doing it. Because they want to see if we're on our toes, and they're actually testing our incident response. Because they the first time did it, we're more aware of it now. But the first time I did it, they hired an outside company to go in and poke at things, and then they wanted to see what our response was. We have a playbook. We contacted the internal IT. They purposely chose not to answer their phones, not to answer their cell phones, and so they went dark on purpose to see what our ultimate behavior was. It was a good learning lesson for us, and there was lessons learned.
So that's a great question though. Okay, so how does incident response? How does that work when you do co-manage? Because Tom's a big co-manage guy. How does that work? How does the collaboration work? How does that look as an offer?
Well, and I think I might Cam answer this question. That's what I was leading up to here. Is what levels of integration can you do? Because obviously we have, and as I said to me, it's not as automated as I'd like it to be. It's process driven. It's open tickets. People look at the ticket and understand the processes we have internally. But where you bring it to, especially as I said, I'm looking at scalability of this because out of the 72 MSP clients we have, I think 55 of them now or so are co-managed. So, we're really going, all right, we're getting big and we're going to have to think about this, and maybe we'll call you after the thing here, Cam. but how do you handle some of that from that automation standpoint to really build that in? And maybe even, do you have the option to work in a co-managed environment where you're working with internal and external IT?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the nice things where specifically within the MSP spaces where we kind of find alert ops being leveraged almost within a single environment as what one could in some fashion considered multi-tenant, right? We'll see all of their clients with specific permissions, specific entitlements to take action on the portions that they're actually in charge of. And when we're talking about when we're talking about an organization with 50 or 100 clients, then each one needs to obviously have their own process. But with that said, one of the nice things is you really can delineate that. You know what environment all the data is coming from, especially when you have the concept of discrete fields passing along data. It's pretty easy to key off of and build logic off of that. So let's say in this scenario, right, in this almost like fire drill type scenario, if there was a message being sent out and no one from their internal IT was responding, at a certain point, you're at step 2, step 3 in your SOP. At that point, we can facilitate regular ongoing communications via whatever mechanism, whether you'd want it on top of notifying them via email, SMS, phone call, a public status page, as well as automating the process of updating and opening those tickets. The manual overhead is substantially less a part of the actual response as much as it is a step in the incident response, right? Mm-hmm. So you're focused on actually resolving, whereas all of these individuals, they still have the ability to jump into their phone and reply approved step or whatever that process looks like internally to facilitate the next stage in that process.
Yeah, and for us, as soon as we started to see the lateral movement, we're like, I don't think this person, we don't think the IT people are doing this. We think someone got in. Of course, they're doing it late at night on a Friday. Perfect time to do it. And the wall we hit was we messaged all of them immediately. My team's on the phone, and I'm like, guys, they didn't reply. He didn't answer his cell phone. He didn't pick it up. lock it all down. So we have the ability to mass do host isolation. So everything became a silo. Every computer became a silo that was on. Every server became a silo that was on. We knew it would be disruptive to their business, but hey, there's something going on here, and it's weird that no one's answering the phone. So that actually, and it brought the entire test to a screeching halt. And actually, we got a nice report back from the testing people going, well, you've seen us spraying the passwords, and and you locked it, and we just went dark. And we said, oh, well, the IT guys responded. Everything just went dark. We're locked out of everything. I'm like, yep. Now, of course, password reuse was how they got in. So we get that report. One of the IT person we knew he had the proper accounts. He had his normal account, which did not have many privileges at all. Then he had an admin account, which is his name _admin, which had privileges. He used the same password for both, and he clicked a phishing email on the first one. So they were actually able to get him. They've got the system admin, and we're able to move relatively fast in there. You're like, yeah, everything else was good, guys. Everything was patched. Everything is up to date, but he's reusing passwords, and it was a system, and we're like, the guy that should know better. Okay.
I missed a bunch already. I'm so sorry. I'm back. I know nobody missed me early. So let's start from the beginning. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I guess here's the next step. When it comes to this for Cam, what level would it have gone down? Could you set the automation and trigger to say at some point, because obviously we're human and we've been alerted, your system is sent out all the notices. Is there a fail-safe in your system where we say the automation says isolate, because there's an API call that you can do back to the tool and say, tell the tool to isolate this machine, lock it down. Is that part of an outcome that can be done?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. So from an API perspective, right, whether it's REST or the SOAP, the amount of tools that I see that are still using legacy SOAP API is fairly high. So I'd say either way, we can talk to any endpoint. So that's one of the nice things. And we have a bit of a lightweight workflow engine behind the scenes, right? So we're ingesting data. Let's say a ticket was fired off. And as a byproduct of that, we're looking at the organization, the type, the subtype, the SLA information that has been tied to that organization. And as a byproduct of that, you have workflows running. At minute 30, if X, Y, and Z has not been satisfied, go ahead and kick off an API call just to isolate, right? Or go ahead and send over recurring invites or, recurring messages or notifications to someone from internal IT requesting approval. If we don't get approval and there's been no response, at that point, fire a workflow. So whatever those checks and balances look like, you can build your logic off of them.
And I think that's really important, especially for these smaller MSPs, giving them that level of tool. If you have even having, we don't have 24/7, we have 24/7 monitoring, but not like, what if someone wasn't awake on the night shift? Someone nods off. You know what I mean? It's not like when you have a team of 100, when you have a bunch of staggered people in time zones and you got everything covered. That's cool. The average MSP, and I don't know, Sean, do you have any stats on what the average MSP? I remember you guys talked about it connectorized before. Isn't it something like a 5-person shop is way more common?
Yes, man, you pay attention. I'm so glad.
Sometimes.
Weird. I don't know how you did that in between the drinks, but that's fine. Yes. Yeah. How do you manage that? And what happens when you're outsourcing? What happens when people outsource their help desk as well to have coverage? What do you do with all that?
But I actually think that's where Cam kind of answered it, is you build in fail safes in your automation. That's where they kind of have to go, is look, at some point, somebody's asleep, somebody drank too much and isn't going to answer the phone. And there's a reality that may hit here. And then you can build that in there. And I think this is what can help save a lot of MSPs, because you're going to cause a business disruption if you shut it all off. That's a given. But a business disruption of shutting off is way easier. Stop it at the password spray before the ransomware is a way better recovery scenario than it's all encrypted and it's been encrypted. And they've had time to, there was one of my favorite hacking incidents. I love the brazenness of one of the hacking groups. They had the insurance list, and they were hacking some of these cities in Florida. And they basically, they went through the list because public documents and things like that. And they knew the insurance company from all city meetings in the same city, all these different cities. The threat actors called the insurance company before they called the IT people. They're like, hey, we hacked one of your clients. Let's start negotiating. And when the IT people called, this is all in bleeping computer. When they called the insurance, they're like, yeah, we're already on the phone with them. Like, they're already in contact with us because they had so much time, because you guys didn't react until you got in the morning and goes, hey, why is there 1,000 tickets?
Right. Oh, wow.
That was one of the craziest stories. And and it's not like ransomware has gotten, and that was like in 2019. It's not like in 3 years ransomware went away. And we still see these same problems, the alerts and things like that. I'm hoping to get a good debrief that came out of this incident that happened with, and we'll throw a name out there in the news, Net Standard. Rumors out there that they had prior knowledge and alerts going off, and no one was actioning on the alerts prior to the incident. And yeah, these are problems that MSPs even at that scale face. So I think this is the automation level, and having these fail safes in there is absolutely, from a discovery standpoint, from Vonahai having an automation discovery of what you're about to, what you could potentially face, to the incident response on that Cam and Alert Ops is talking about here. We're building automation because you guys were, if you're asleep at the wheel, at least have the system have a fail safe that'll force you into a scenario that is safer and more recoverable than the incident that some of these companies are facing.
Well, and I think also the cadence, right? Because like for Alert Ops, right, in this case, it's already hard enough to build an IR plan, especially with a bunch of tech people that don't necessarily want to do it. But now you have an automated way to create this plan. And now you're really just reviewing and practicing, making sure that you can respond when something happens. And same thing on our side. Not only can you do a pen test now, but you could do it more frequently. That's actually our whole point, was to make this accessible and also continuous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you think about it too, from the continuous standpoint, it's so important because Patch Tuesday every month.
Yep.
So there's a new list going into the Vonahai security database like every single month, just from Microsoft, let alone all the other vendors. So there's always something new. And Microsoft 2022 has not been their year for good news. They've had a lot of things that were hard to patch and really, really required to patch. And as anyone who manages many Microsoft servers, they don't always patch for magic reasons.
That's
that
shocking.
only Microsoft knows.
That is shocking. Microsoft, did they ever go down because they're Office 365? Like Microsoft 360.
I think what they're out to. Someone's got to keep a track on a website, like how many cumulative downtime, call them Office 362,
whatever it is, 361.5. I don't care, but just track that. Like, and once they go down, everything is done.
Yep.
It is talk about business continuity issues. Oh my Lord, I hate them then. I love them and then I hate them.
Well, Teams is great until it's not.
Right? Teams is great and then it's gone.
Yeah,
I think they do it on purpose. I think it's a power struggle. That's for doing.
So before we get towards the end of this here, because Sean only has a few more minutes, we'll start with Cam. Well, Sean didn't bring this question up. What's your currency? What gets you going? What is your, what's that thing you're trying to solve that makes you happy, that keeps you doing this and working in tech?
So, I mean, the automation is cool. I think that a lot of the problems in the real world that we're experiencing with digital transformation is very cool. But for me personally, I like the human element about it, right? I like the fact that a tech can go to sleep when they're on call and not have to worry about an offline server coming back up 5 minutes later and being woken up and drop their kid off to school late. I like the fact that you're making people's lives, right? It's a change to their lifestyle and makes it more manageable, right? That's really the piece where when we talk to a lot of our clients that after implementation and onboarding are just like, wow, I've gotten more sleep than I have the past 6 months. That definitely gets me going.
Key?
Yeah. So for me, I've always liked tech because one of the things I figured out that there's no right or wrong way to build a solution stack necessarily, right?
Right.
There is a not great and a really good way to do it, or a great way to do it. And for me, it's about building that great product, building something that everyone's going to be like, holy crap, I have to use that. I want to use that.
Yeah, that it's exciting too. When you build out a tool and people use it and get some joy out of it as well. Like, hey, this helped me. That's always exciting.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
For me, it's similar. I do YouTube videos and it's kind of exciting. Hey, cool, that helped me. And because I did a tutorial that helped someone, it's awesome. It's similar vein. I like that too. And you're helping people out and building this, getting all this better in technology is just a great driver for all of this.
Yeah.
Sean's favorite question's coming up now.
No, my favorite question. Yeah. So we'll start with Key here, man. What is your love language, dude?
Act of service. Because to me, my time is the most valuable thing to me, or time in general, right? Because it's finite. We're all going to die someday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never dying. I already.
I'm happy for you. I figured you've been around for a while. No.
Whoa.
No, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant like
he sees the gray in the beard.
Everybody laughed because it did not sound that you're really complimenting me. Just so we're clear.
You know, I would call Sean old.
You're the same age as me, Tom.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, right. You used to have a ponytail. Just because you're trying to be Steven Seagal still doesn't make you young.
You know, I thought you looked familiar. That's a great, that's a great comparison.
Right. You should see his ninja skills. It's amazing.
I believe it.
No.
Keto, like the top level Keto master right here.
Yeah, like he slaps them around, tosses them, does all that. It's crazy.
But yeah, so my time is important to me, and I feel like if I'm willing to give up, or someone's willing to give up their time to do something for me, or vice versa, it's very impactful. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, Cam, what about you?
I'm gonna go with receiving gifts. I like to give gifts. If I hear someone say something and I know Christmas is rolling around, it's gonna be on my mind for the next couple months. So the amount of
So Cam, not to throw this out there, but you're the first man to say that one. Usually it's the women and children that say that. Just want to be clear.
I say it proudly.
Nice.
Own it, man. It's great.
Yeah, own it.
Absolutely. Yeah, just want to let you know that. But yeah, no, spot on. I love it. Wait. Tom said, Tim, yeah, it is my love language. Talking I tell my kids that. I've threatened all my children with I'm never dying. They're like, I have
stubborn and drive them crazy.
I have ambitions. I want to live with all of them one at a time, and I want to live with them I figure I have 4 kids, so I can spend 1 year with one, and by the time the end of the year comes up, they'll not like me so much. They'll pay for my ticket to the next one, and I'll go to the next one. And by the time I make full circle, the first one forgot how much they disliked me. It's like getting a tattoo. You forget how bad it hurts. And then you bring me back, and I start over again, and that's the goal. So and if they don't, the problem is this whole technology thing is really ruining things because they can talk much easier. Communication is way easier. It's really ruining this for me so far.
Yeah, they're like, Dad's gonna be a pain.
I think they're actually going to probably purchase the alert ops stuff for incident response to me.
It's an alert when Sean comes over.
Yeah. And I don't want to get into the whole
plan for Sean.
Exactly. I don't want to get into the whole pen testing concept with me. I don't want to talk about penetration is not a good thing. Oh God! All right, we're off the rails. Got 2 minutes, so we got to wrap this up.
All right. Well, links are down below where you can check out Alert Ops, Phone High Security, and everything about the PitchIT program. Everything's linked down below. Thank you, Cam and Key, for joining us. This was a lot of fun. I think you can find lots of information about both of them. I was flipping through their websites. Both of them both have great websites with just tons of info where people can get demos and sign up and everything else. So there's a lot you can do there. Reach out to them if you're interested in their products and everything else. And we're looking forward to seeing you guys in November 2022 at the PitchIT competition. So, all right. Take care, everyone. And thanks.
Awesome.
Bye, all.
See you guys.